Thunder crashes as the determined black woman pounds on the weathered cabin door, desperation driving her to face the towering cowboy within and declare, "I want a child you can give me." In the unforgiving Texas frontier, the widow is seen as nothing more than another doomed woman destined to lose everything to men who view her as disposable. The town expects her to vanish quietly, stripped of property and dignity by laws designed to crush people like her. But the silent giant who answers her door carries secrets that could either validate her impossible gamble or destroy them both. Hidden beneath her shocking request lies a vision that threatens the very foundation of their divided community, while his buried past holds the key to survival or ruin. Can two outcasts forge something powerful from society's rejection? Or will their desperate alliance seal their destruction? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The morning sun cast long shadows across Cedar Ridge as Sarah Williams swept the steps of her small schoolhouse. 6 months had passed since Thomas died, leaving her with nothing but his modest plot of land and the weight of impossible dreams. She watched the dust settle on the empty desks inside, remembering when children's laughter filled these walls. The bell above Hendricks's general store chimed as she approached. Martha Hendricks looked up from her ledger, her face hardening like winter ground. "We don't serve your kind anymore, Sarah. You know that." Sarah placed her coins on the counter. "Just need flour and coffee beans. Store policy changed last week. Take your business elsewhere." Elsewhere meant nowhere. Every merchant in Cedar Ridge had received the same message from Cornelius Hayes. The banker's influence spread through town like poison, turning neighbors into enemies with whispered threats about property values and social order. Sarah walked past the bank's gleaming windows. Hayes sat behind his mahogany desk, counting profits from seized properties. His eyes followed her movement, calculating and cold. She quickened her pace. The territorial law was simple and brutal. Unmarried women could not own property beyond 6 months of their husband's death without a male heir or new marriage. Sarah had 14 days remaining before Hayes could legally claim everything Thomas had worked to build. She had tried reasoning with eligible men in town. Each conversation ended the same way. Polite refusals followed by nervous glances toward the bank. Hayes had made his position clear to anyone considering marriage to the widow teacher. Cross him and face economic ruin. Thunder rumbled across the plains as Sarah returned to her empty schoolhouse. Rain began pelting the windows, matching the rhythm of her growing desperation. She counted her remaining coins. Enough for 3 more days of modest meals, then nothing. The storm intensified as darkness fell. Sarah pulled, her shawl tight, and ventured into the night. Her destination lay 3 miles beyond town limits, where Jake Morrison's cabin stood against the endless prairie. The half-Mexican cowboy lived alone, keeping to himself and speaking only when necessity demanded it. Townfolk feared Jake's imposing size and silence. He stood over 6 feet tall with shoulders broad enough to carry full grain sacks without strain. His mixed heritage made him useful, but never accepted. Store owners paid him for heavy lifting and cattle work, then watched him leave with visible relief. Sarah had observed Jake from distance during his rare trips to town. While others saw only his intimidating presence, she noticed something different. The way he gentled spooked horses with patient movements. How he stepped carefully around children, making himself smaller in their presence. The books tucked discreetly in his saddlebags when he thought no one was looking. Lightning illuminated the path to his cabin. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she climbed the wooden steps. This was madness, but madness seemed her only option now. She knocked 3 times. Heavy footsteps approached. The door opened, revealing Jake's massive frame silhouetted against warm lamplight. His dark eyes widened with surprise. "Mrs. Williams, what brings you out in this weather?" "I need to speak with you. It's urgent." Jake stepped aside, gesturing toward a simple wooden chair near the stone fireplace. The cabin was spartanly furnished but clean. Books lined makeshift shelves along one wall. A medical journal lay open beside his reading chair. Sarah remained standing, gathering courage for words she never imagined speaking. "I want a child you can give me." Jake's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. The fire crackled in the sudden silence. "Ma'am, I'm not sure I understand." Sarah's hands trembled as she explained her situation. The banking laws, Hayes's manipulation, her dwindling options. Jake listened without interruption, his expression growing more thoughtful with each detail. "You're asking me to marry you. A business arrangement, nothing more. I keep my land. You get fair compensation for your trouble." Jake set down his cup and studied her face in the flickering light. "Why me? Surely other men in town would consider such an arrangement. I've asked them all. Your mixed blood makes you acceptable to no one, which makes you perfect for me. We're both outcasts here." Something shifted in Jake's expression. Pain, perhaps, or recognition of shared isolation. "And after? What happens when you have what you need? We live separate lives on the same property. You continue your work. I continue mine." Jake walked to the window, watching rain streak down the glass. His reflection showed a man wrestling with impossible choices. "Mrs. Williams, what you're suggesting would make us both targets. Hayes won't stop at legal maneuvering if he feels threatened. Then we face those consequences together, or I lose everything alone in 2 weeks." The storm raged outside as Jake considered her proposal. Sarah watched his internal struggle, understanding the weight of what she asked. Marriage to her would isolate him further from a community that barely tolerated his existence, but something in his posture suggested deeper consideration than simple risk assessment, as if her desperate offer had awakened possibilities he'd never dared imagine. Jake turned from the window, his decision forming in the set of his shoulders. Jake's massive hands gripped the windowsill as memories flooded back. The face of a young girl flickered in the firelight's reflection. Maria, 10 years old with bright eyes and fevered skin. The memory still burned. "There's more to this than saving your land." Sarah straightened, sensing the shift in his tone. "What do you mean?" "You mentioned a child specifically, not just marriage for legal protection." Sarah's breath caught. She had hoped to avoid this explanation, but Jake's perceptive nature left no room for half-truths. Her secret work teaching children beyond the schoolhouse had shown her something remarkable. "I've been educating children the town refuses to acknowledge. Mexican families, former slaves, mixed heritage children like yourself." Jake turned from the window, his full attention focused on her words. "These children face hardships. Others never will. But they develop something extraordinary in response. Resilience. Intelligence that bridges different worlds. Strength born from necessity." The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Jake's expression revealed nothing, but his stillness suggested deep listening. A child of our union would inherit that strength. They'd face challenges, yes, but they'd also possess opportunities neither of us ever had. The chance to belong to multiple worlds instead of being rejected by all of them. Jake's jaw tightened. The memory of Maria's final moments rushed back with crushing force. She had died because no doctor in Cedar Ridge would treat a half-breed child. Her fever had broken his heart and forged his determination to never feel that helpless again. "You believe our child could bridge what we never could." "I've seen it happen. The children I teach in secret possess wisdom beyond their years. They understand injustice but refuse to surrender to it. They learn faster, adapt quicker, survive better." Jake walked to his bookshelf and pulled out a leather journal. The pages contained detailed notes in careful handwriting, medical observations, treatment records, years of self-education born from desperate necessity. "After my sister died, I swore no one else would suffer for lack of care. I've been treating folks the town doctors won't touch." Sarah's eyes widened as she recognized the significance. Jake had spent years developing medical knowledge in isolation, driven by the same protective instinct she hoped to nurture in their child. "You understand exactly what I'm proposing. Maria wasn't my blood sister. She was a young girl I tried to save. Her death taught me that surviving in this world requires more than just endurance. It requires purpose. The storm outside seemed to echo their shared recognition. Two outcasts who had transformed their pain into purpose, now considering whether their union could create something greater than their individual struggles. Jake closed the journal and met Sarah's gaze. If we do this, it won't be just a business arrangement. I won't father a child without commitment to their future. I wouldn't ask for anything less. Then we have an agreement. The next morning brought clarity in more ways than one. Sarah moved her few possessions to Jake's cabin while he prepared space for her belongings. They established separate sleeping areas and shared common spaces with careful respect for boundaries. Jake's true nature emerged in daylight. His imposing presence softened around Sarah, revealing gentle mannerisms that contradicted his fearsome reputation. He moved with deliberate care, spoke in measured tones, and demonstrated intelligence that years of silence had hidden from the world. "Can you read?" Sarah asked, noticing his extensive book collection. "Taught myself. Books don't judge heritage. What subjects interest you most?" "Medicine, history, philosophy. Knowledge the town assumes I couldn't possess." Sarah smiled, recognizing a kindred spirit. "Education has been my sanctuary too. Teaching gives purpose to suffering." They spent the following days planning their approach. Marriage required witnesses and legal documentation. The ceremony would need to occur in town, subjecting them both to public scrutiny and potential hostility. Jake surprised Sarah by revealing his familiarity with territorial marriage laws. His self-education extended far beyond medical knowledge into legal matters that could protect their union from future challenges. "Hayes will try to invalidate the marriage. We need documentation that leaves no room for legal manipulation." "You've thought about this before. I've watched him destroy other families. Preparation is survival." Sarah began showing Jake her secret teaching methods. Hidden among his property were caves where she could continue educating children without town interference. Jake's protection would allow her to expand her work beyond what had been possible before. "How many children have you been teaching?" 15 regularly. More when families feel safe enough to bring them." Jake's respect for Sarah's courage grew with each revelation. She had risked everything to provide education where none existed, driven by the same protective instinct that motivated his medical work. "After we marry, this work continues, with full support. The town will eventually discover what we're doing. Let them. Some things matter more than social acceptance." As their wedding day approached, Sarah and Jake found their arrangement evolving into genuine partnership. Shared purpose created deeper connection than either had anticipated. Their union would save Sarah's land, but it might also create something neither had dared imagine: the possibility of belonging somewhere, with someone who understood the weight of being permanently outside society's acceptance. Their child would inherit that understanding, but also the strength to transform it into power. The morning of their wedding arrived with unforgiving heat. Sarah adjusted her simple blue dress, while Jake straightened his only formal shirt. They had chosen Monday deliberately, hoping fewer townspeople would witness the ceremony during working hours. Father McKenna waited at the small chapel, his weathered hands clutching the marriage register. The elderly priest had agreed to perform the ceremony without enthusiasm, but with Christian duty. His nervous glances toward the door revealed his awareness of potential community backlash. "Are you both certain about this union?" "We are," Jake replied, his deep voice steady. The chapel door creaked open as they exchanged vows. Martha Hendricks entered first, followed by 3 other store owners. Hayes appeared in the doorway, his cold eyes calculating every detail for future use against them. "Do you, Jacob Morrison, take Sarah Williams as your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." Whispers rippled through the small gathering. Hayes made notes in a leather journal, documenting witnesses and legal details with predatory precision. "Do you, Sarah Williams, take Jacob Morrison as your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." Father McKenna completed the ceremony with unusual haste. The marriage certificate bore official seals that would protect Sarah's property rights. Hayes examined the document closely, searching for technical flaws that might enable future challenges. "Congratulations," the banker said with false warmth. "Such an interesting match." Jake's massive frame blocked Hayes's path as they left the chapel. The two men regarded each other with mutual recognition of declared war. Sarah slipped her arm through Jake's, presenting a united front to their critics. The walk back to their combined properties felt like a gauntlet. Store owners stood in doorways, whispering behind cupped hands. Children pointed until their parents pulled them inside. The message was clear. Cedar Ridge had witnessed something it would not easily forgive. Sarah's original land joined seamlessly with Jake's homestead, creating a more substantial operation. The combined acreage included water rights, grazing areas, and the hidden caves where Sarah planned to expand her secret school. Their marriage had created both legal protection and practical advantages. That evening, Jake prepared separate sleeping quarters as promised. But their conversation by the fireplace revealed growing comfort with each other's presence. The arrangement born of desperation was evolving into genuine partnership. "The town will make things difficult now." "Let them try," Jake said. "We have legal standing and defensible property. Hayes won't stop with social pressure. Then we'll be ready for whatever comes next." 3 weeks into their marriage, the community backlash intensified. Hendrick's General Store posted a sign, "We reserve the right to refuse service." Other businesses followed with similar policies. The economic boycott was systematic and complete. Jake began traveling to neighboring towns for supplies. The 30-mile journey was exhausting, but it provided necessary goods while demonstrating their refusal to be starved into submission. Sarah used the isolation to expand her secret teaching operation. "How many children now?" Jake asked, returning from a supply run. 23. "Word is spreading among families." "Good. They need what you're offering." Sarah's pregnancy became apparent as summer progressed. The news sparked fresh waves of community gossip and concern. A child would make their union permanent, cementing their place as Cedar Ridge outsiders. But something unexpected happened as Sarah's condition became visible. Jake's protective instincts intensified, and his public behavior began changing. The silent giant who had accepted years of dismissal started speaking up. At the monthly town meeting, Jake rose to address water rights disputes. His articulate speech and comprehensive knowledge of territorial law shocked the assembled citizens. The man they had dismissed as simple muscle demonstrated intelligence that rivaled the town's educated elite. The territorial code clearly states that water access cannot be restricted based on property owner characteristics. Mayor Whitman stared in amazement. "Mr. Morrison, where did you acquire such legal knowledge?" "Books, study, the same way anyone learns." Hayes shifted uncomfortably as Jake's competence became undeniable. The banker's strategy relied on community perception of the couple as inferior. Jake's eloquence threatened that narrative. Sarah watched from the back of the room, pride swelling as her husband claimed his rightful intellectual space. This was the transformation she had envisioned, not just for their future child, but for Jake himself. After the meeting, several townspeople approached Jake with new respect. His years of silent observation had equipped him with detailed knowledge of community issues. Problems that had festered due to poor leadership suddenly had thoughtful solutions. "Never knew you had such learning," said Tom Fletcher, the blacksmith. "Never had reason to share it before." Sarah's secret school faced discovery when a parent mentioned their child's improved reading skills at the general store. Martha Hendricks immediately reported the information to Hayes, who saw opportunity in the revelation. "Illegal education of mixed children," Hayes announced at the next town meeting. "Violation of territorial education codes." The accusation created division among townspeople. Some supported Hayes's position, viewing integrated education as dangerous precedent. Others recognized the value of Sarah's teaching, having witnessed their children's intellectual growth. Jake stood to defend his wife's work. "Education benefits everyone. Knowledge doesn't recognize racial boundaries." "But the law does," Hayes replied. "Territorial codes specify separate educational facilities." "Show me the specific statute," Hayes faltered, unable to cite precise legal language. Jake's challenge exposed the banker's reliance on intimidation rather than legal authority. The community began recognizing patterns of manipulation that had controlled them for years. As autumn arrived, Sarah's pregnancy advanced visibly. Their child would be born into a changing world, shaped by parents who refused to accept society's limitations. The marriage that began as desperate necessity had become something neither expected, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared purpose, and growing love that would soon bring new life into their transformed world. Winter's first storm struck Cedar Ridge with unexpected fury. Sarah's labor pains began as wind howled through the cabin walls, each contraction matching the thunder outside. Jake moved with practiced efficiency, gathering supplies and preparing the bedroom with movements born of experience nobody knew he possessed. "The midwife," Sarah gasped between waves of pain. "Mrs. Patterson won't come, not for us." Sarah gripped the bedpost as another contraction seized her body. The baby was coming whether the town approved or not. Jake's calm presence steadied her panic as he assessed the situation with clinical detachment. "I've delivered babies before." "When?" "Mexican workers' families. Their women couldn't afford doctors." Jake's hands moved with surprising gentleness as he examined Sarah's condition. His touch revealed medical knowledge that contradicted everything the town believed about his capabilities. The silent giant had spent years developing skills that would save lives. Sarah's labor intensified as the storm reached its peak. Jake prepared clean linens and heated water with methodical precision. His movements showed familiarity with medical procedures that spoke of extensive practice under difficult conditions. "How many deliveries?" "Enough to know complications when I see them." The baby was positioned wrong. Sarah's narrow frame and the child's size created dangerous circumstances that required immediate intervention. Jake's medical training, hidden for years behind silence and assumed ignorance, emerged as their salvation. "I need to turn the baby." His skilled manipulation guided their child into proper position while Sarah fought through waves of agony. The procedure required knowledge of anatomy and birthing techniques that no simple cowboy should possess. Hours passed with Jake monitoring Sarah's progress like a trained physician. His bedside manner revealed compassion developed through treating people society had abandoned. Every decision demonstrated medical understanding earned through desperate necessity. The cabin door burst open as Mrs. Patterson arrived, soaked from the storm and reluctant to be there. Tom Fletcher had convinced her to come, arguing that Christian duty transcended social prejudice. "What's happening here?" "Difficult labor. Baby was breech." Mrs. Patterson examined Sarah and stared at Jake in amazement. "You turned the child?" "Seemed necessary." The midwife's professional assessment revealed Jake's work had prevented disaster. His intervention had saved both mother and baby from complications that could have proved fatal. "Where did you learn such techniques?" "Books, practice, people who needed help." As dawn broke, Sarah delivered a healthy daughter. The baby's cries filled the cabin with sound that transcended racial boundaries and social divisions. Jake held his daughter with reverence that spoke of profound love and protective instinct. Mrs. Patterson cleaned the infant while studying Jake's medical supplies. His collection included instruments and medicines that revealed years of serious practice. The town's assumptions about his ignorance crumbled in the face of undeniable evidence. "You've been treating people all along. Those who couldn't get help elsewhere. Mexican workers. Anyone who needed care." Sarah watched Jake cradle their daughter, understanding the depth of his hidden compassion. The man who had saved her from financial ruin had also saved countless lives through secret medical practice. Mrs. Patterson's attitude shifted as she witnessed Jake's skill. Professional respect replaced social prejudice as she recognized his genuine medical knowledge. The midwife had delivered babies for 30 years, but Jake's technique impressed even her experienced eye. "The fever that took the Hernandez boy last spring? I treated him, saved 2 others from the same illness. The broken leg that healed perfectly after Doc Williams said it couldn't be set? Set it myself, checked healing progress for months." Each revelation transformed the midwife's understanding. Jake had operated an underground medical practice for years, providing essential care to people the established doctors refused to treat. His silence had protected both his patients and himself from community backlash. Word of the successful delivery spread through town, with Mrs. Patterson as reluctant messenger. Her professional opinion carried weight that changed public perception. The giant everyone feared had medical skills that rivaled trained physicians. Tom Fletcher arrived with news that shifted everything. Hayes has been asking questions about property seizures. Territorial authorities are investigating. Jake's documentation of Hayes's illegal activities had reached official attention. The evidence gathered through years of careful observation was being reviewed by federal investigators. What kind of evidence? Land deeds, forged documents, witness testimony. Sarah realized Jake's legal knowledge extended beyond marriage certificates. He had been building a case against Hayes that could expose systematic fraud affecting multiple families. Their daughter slept peacefully as Jake explained his strategy. Years of apparent passivity had masked careful investigation of Hayes's criminal activities. The banker's downfall had been orchestrated by the man he most dismissed. You planned this from the beginning. Some plans take years to mature. Mrs. Patterson prepared to leave as the storm subsided. Her parting words carried grudging respect for what she had witnessed. That child was born into good hands. Jake's medical reputation spread through whispered conversations among families he had helped. Mexican workers shared stories of successful treatments. Former patients emerged from silence to acknowledge his skill. The town's perception shifted as hidden truths became public knowledge. The silent giant possessed intelligence and compassion that shamed those who had dismissed him. His marriage to Sarah was no longer seen as desperate convenience, but as union between two remarkable people. Sarah held their daughter while watching Jake organize medical supplies. Their child would grow up knowing her father as healer and protector, not the frightening figure others had imagined. The baby they had created was already changing their world in ways neither had expected. Federal Marshal Davis arrived in Cedar Ridge 3 days after Hope's birth. His weathered face and official badge commanded immediate attention as he rode down Main Street toward the bank. Jake's carefully documented evidence had triggered a territorial investigation that would reshape the town's power structure. Hayes sat behind his mahogany desk when the marshal entered. The banker's confident demeanor cracked as Davis placed a thick folder of documents before him. Years of Jake's meticulous record-keeping had created an undeniable case of systematic fraud. These property seizures show interesting patterns, Mr. Hayes. Jake had documented every illegal land grab with dates, witnesses, and forged document analysis. His legal research had identified territorial statutes Hayes had violated repeatedly. The evidence revealed corruption extending far beyond Sarah's case. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. 17 families have lost property through questionable legal maneuvering, all following identical patterns. The marshal's investigation exposed Hayes's method of targeting vulnerable property owners with fabricated legal technicalities. Widows, immigrants, and mixed heritage families had been systematically stripped of their land through fraudulent documentation. Jake's intelligence network among the town's outcasts had provided witness testimony that corroborated every accusation. Mexican workers, former slaves, and dismissed families had shared their experiences with the only person who would listen and believe them. Mr. Morrison's documentation is quite comprehensive. Hayes's face reddened as he realized the scope of Jake's investigation. The silent giant had spent years building an airtight case while appearing to ignore the banker's activities. Every seized property had been researched, every forged document identified. That half-breed has no legal standing. His education suggests otherwise. These briefs show sophisticated understanding of territorial law. Jake's self-taught legal expertise had produced documentation that impressed federal authorities. His analysis of Hayes's fraudulent activities demonstrated intelligence that contradicted every assumption about his capabilities. At the Morrison homestead, Sarah nursed Hope while visitors arrived with news of the investigation's progress. Mrs. Patterson had spread word of Jake's medical skills, bringing families who needed treatment for conditions the town doctor wouldn't address. "Can you help with my son's breathing problems?" Jake examined the Mexican boy whose asthma had worsened without proper care. His treatment plan included herbs and breathing exercises that provided immediate relief. The child's improvement was visible within hours. Where did you learn such healing methods? Books, practice, necessity. Word of Jake's medical success traveled through communities that had been denied health care. Former patients emerged from hiding to share stories of successful treatments they had received in secret. The underground practice that had saved lives for years finally gained recognition. Sarah watched her husband's transformation with growing admiration. The man who had married her from desperation was revealing himself as community healer and protector. His hidden talents were reshaping public perception with every successful treatment. Mayor Whitman arrived at their cabin as Jake finished treating a young girl's infected wound. The politician's nervous demeanor revealed his awareness of shifting power dynamics in Cedar Ridge. The town council wants to discuss your medical practice. What's to discuss? Making it official. We need a doctor who treats everyone. Jake's years of secret healing had demonstrated his competence beyond question. His success rate exceeded that of the established physician who refused to treat certain populations. The community could no longer ignore his value. Doc Williams is considering retirement anyway. Sarah joined the conversation while holding hope. Their daughter had become a symbol of possibility in a town learning to value previously dismissed contributions. The position comes with official recognition and fair compensation. And my wife's school? The territorial authority supports integrated education when properly administered. The investigation's revelations had exposed flaws in Cedar Ridge's leadership that demanded correction. Jake and Sarah's contributions offered solutions to problems that had festered under Hayes's corrupt influence. Marshall Davis returned with arrest warrants that ended Hayes's reign of financial terror. The banker's removal from power triggered immediate changes in town policy and social attitudes. Properties seized through fraudulent means would be returned to their rightful owners. 17 families will recover their land. Jake's documentation had provided legal foundation for reversing years of systematic theft. The evidence he had gathered while appearing powerless had become the tool of Hayes's destruction. Sarah's secret school received official sanction as the Marshals' investigation revealed its educational value. Children from various backgrounds had achieved learning levels that impressed territorial authorities. The integrated approach had produced superior results compared to segregated alternatives. Education benefits everyone when properly implemented. Jake's support of Sarah's teaching had provided safe environment for academic innovation. The hidden caves had become classrooms where children learned beyond the limitations imposed by social prejudice. Hope slept peacefully as her parents discussed their transformed circumstances. The desperate marriage that had begun as legal necessity had evolved into partnership that was reshaping their community. Their union had created ripple effects that extended far beyond personal survival. We've become what we never expected. What did we expect? To remain outsiders forever. Jake's emergence as respected healer and Sarah's recognition as gifted educator had earned them social standing they had never imagined possible. Their daughter would grow up in a community that valued their contributions rather than dismissing their heritage. The town that had rejected them was learning to celebrate their presence. Hayes's removal had eliminated the primary source of organized prejudice that had poisoned social relationships for years. Mrs. Patterson stopped by with news that confirmed their complete transformation. The midwife's professional network had spread word of Jake's medical abilities throughout the territory. Requests for your services are coming from 3 counties. Their success had created demand that extended far beyond Cedar Ridge's boundaries. Jake's healing reputation and Sarah's educational innovations were attracting attention from communities seeking similar solutions to social division. Hope would inherit a world transformed by her parents' courage to challenge limitations imposed by others. 1 year later, spring sunshine streamed through the windows of Sarah's expanded schoolhouse. Children of every background filled the desks, their voices blending in harmonious recitation of arithmetic tables. Hope sat in her cradle nearby, gurgling contentedly as her mother guided young minds through lessons that would have been impossible just months before. Mrs. Morrison, Tommy learned his whole alphabet this week, announced Maria Gonzalez, her dark eyes bright with pride. Sarah smiled at the Mexican girl whose intelligence had flourished under proper instruction. The integrated classroom had proven what she had always believed. Children learned best when diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed. Through the window, She watched Jake emerge from his medical clinic across the street. His practice had grown beyond anything Cedar Ridge had ever seen. Patients traveled from distant counties seeking treatment from the doctor who saw ability rather than appearance. The town square bustled with activity that reflected fundamental changes in social structure. Former outcasts now operated successful businesses. Families that had hidden in shadows participated openly in community life. The economic prosperity that followed social inclusion had surprised even the most progressive residents. Mayor Whitman approached Jake outside the clinic, carrying official documents that required medical review. The politician who had once ignored the silent giant now sought his expertise on public health matters affecting the entire territory. The Territorial Health Board wants your input on medical standards. What kind of standards? Treatment protocols for rural communities. Your success rates have attracted official attention. Jake's innovative approaches to frontier medicine had produced outcomes that impressed territorial authorities. His combination of traditional knowledge with practical field experience had created treatment methods that other doctors were eager to study. Mrs. Patterson emerged from the clinic after assisting with a complicated surgery. The midwife had become Jake's unofficial partner, combining her experience with his expanding medical knowledge. Their collaboration had elevated healthcare throughout the region. The Johnson baby will make a full recovery. Good. The lung infection was more serious than expected. Your treatment saved that child's life. Jake's reputation as a healer had grown beyond Cedar Ridge's boundaries. Families brought critically ill patients from hundreds of miles away, seeking miracle cures from the doctor, who refused no one based on their background. Inside the schoolhouse, Sarah conducted afternoon lessons for adult students. Former slaves learned to read alongside Mexican workers and struggling white families. The evening classes had become as popular as the children's education, creating literacy where none had existed before. Mr. Hernandez, your reading has improved remarkably. The elderly man beamed with pride as he completed a paragraph without assistance. His grandchildren attended Sarah's day school while he mastered skills that would help their family business prosper. Hope began walking on her first birthday, taking unsteady steps between her parents as the entire community celebrated. The child who had been conceived from desperation had become a beloved symbol of possibility and hope for Cedar Ridge's future. Tom Fletcher lifted Hope onto his shoulders during the birthday celebration. The blacksmith who had once viewed Jake with suspicion now considered him family. The bonds forged through mutual respect had created relationships stronger than blood. This little one will grow up in a different world than we did. A better world, Sarah replied, watching her daughter laugh with children of every heritage. The economic transformation had been as dramatic as the social changes. Property values had increased as the community's reputation for inclusion attracted new residents. Businesses thrived when they served all customers equally. The prosperity that followed justice had vindicated every risk Jake and Sarah had taken. Hayes's former bank building now housed a community center where town meetings included voices that had been silenced for decades. Decisions were made through inclusive discussion rather than authoritarian decree. The democratic process had flourished once systematic oppression ended. Jake's medical practice occupied a newly constructed building that reflected his elevated status. The facility included separate examination rooms, a surgical area, and living quarters for patients requiring extended care. The investment demonstrated the community's commitment to quality health care for all residents. Sarah's school had expanded into a 3-room building that accommodated growing enrollment. Children from neighboring communities traveled daily to receive education that prepared them for opportunities their parents had never imagined possible. The integrated approach had become a model for territorial educational policy. As evening approached, the Morrison family gathered around their dinner table in the enlarged cabin that had become a gathering place for community leaders. The desperate woman who had knocked on a cowboy's door had become the town's most respected educator. The silent giant had emerged as its most valued healer. Hope babbled happily in her high chair, surrounded by the love and security her parents had fought to create. Her mixed heritage, which would have been a burden in the old Cedar Ridge, was celebrated as a bridge between communities that had learned to value diversity. "She'll never know the fear we lived with," Jake observed, watching his daughter play with wooden blocks. "She'll know strength instead. the strength we built together. The transformation had rippled outward beyond their community. Other towns were adopting similar inclusive policies after witnessing Cedar Ridge's prosperity. The courage of two outcasts had sparked changes that would benefit generations. Jake's medical innovations were being documented for territorial health standards. Sarah's educational methods were being studied by teachers across the frontier. Their individual talents, combined through love and mutual support, had created lasting improvements in countless lives. Hope fell asleep in her father's arms as stars appeared over the peaceful town. The child born from a desperate bargain would inherit a world transformed by her parents' refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. Their love had proven that courage and compassion could overcome any barrier that prejudice might create.